the way the universe works doesn't fit well into our sort of physical constructs, just like the way quantum mechanics makes no sense to somebody who's well versed in, standard physics. It's like if you're suddenly things are just happening in a way that seem impossible. And like for example, the what made me think of it when you were talking about accepting is that a lot of times we feel like I'm separate from others, and so I want to sort of change this living from separation to a feeling of living from connection. That's something I've even said before too. Like, oh, that's the goal, to kind of shift from sort of separate mindset to a connected mindset. But recently, in the last year, I realized, oh, that's not the case at all. So this idea of being connected and being separate are the same idea. It's actually, I can't be connected to somebody if I'm not separate from them. Like, it implies distance. It has to do with time and space, right? And it's like, oh, well, what's actually happening there? What's happening when I tune into the universe or into spirit mind is that we're undivided,
You
and we're
mentioned that at the
co-located.
beginning of the podcast with the Indigenous awareness as well. Sorry, I just wanted to bring that
Yeah,
back in frame. You mentioned undivided versus connected. Sorry, please
yeah,
continue. Sorry.
yeah. And you're right. That's actually pretty common in sayings you hear that come from indigenous tribes. It'll be like, "I am another you," or "We're all one," or they're just that. And it's not about I'm connected to you because I'm separate, but I'm connected, or it's not about that at all. It's like that's a different dimension. This idea that we're not that we're not the same, that we're divided at all. That's this whole physical reality that we're used to interpreting things through. But there's something much deeper. There's something you can be in that space of being undivided, and that's where the magic happens, and that's where I'm talking about. And I think acceptance is kind of like that. That's probably what brought me to it. Like, once I understood that or felt that for myself, it's not something I understood up here. That helps a little bit, but eventually it's an experience that you have. And once I had that experience, it's able to say, oh, okay, I don't really have to even accept. It's just sort of real. It's not a conscious choice. Do you know what I mean? It's very difficult to put all this into words because words are very linear. So
Yeah, it's back to that, Newtonian physics versus quantum physics
yeah,
point that you made
exactly.
earlier.
Yeah, but
The
it's fun. It's fun to try. Yeah.
There was, I think, a couple of beats ago, I think some of the audience members could have potentially gotten triggered because there was this point where it said life is inviting us to be like, yes, like the life of our dreams, but it's calling to be even better than we imagined. And when you feel into that, the expanse of that, and there's this real feeling of like there's a truth in there, and yet so many people's lives don't feel like that.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if that's us in our own ways. And then yeah, I just wanted to sort of speak to
What's
that and
happening
sort
there?
of yeah, and well, even just if we are in our own way, your invitation on how we get out of it as well. But yeah, like yeah,
Sure. Yeah, yeah. If I think back, the time I was experiencing that most dramatically was when I was in my software career. So I had 20 years. I was a software engineer, and this kind of energy work and intuition was just kind of this, a wild side thing that I did for fun. But my main gig was software engineer, and at some point, I was actually really good at what you would call, manifesting, right? So I knew what I wanted to create. I had a job. I was moving up the ladder. The salary was increasing. I had a nice house that I liked. A car. Like my daughter. I had like all these things that were on the list that I was manifesting. Um, but at some point, I noticed that I don't feel any more fulfilled now than I did before I had all these things, before I had these situations. In fact, maybe less so. I might feel less fulfilled now that I've accomplished all my dreams than before. And I feel a little, and that was kind of depressing. It's like, oh man, I thought, I invested 10 years or whatever, like really kind of moving trying to maneuver myself into this position where I thought I would be successful and happy. So to get to that place and then feel like I don't know why I'm not happy is like really scary. It's like I've told this story many times. I'd leave my nice house, get in my nice car, drive to my nice job to get my nice salary, and I hate it. It's like, okay, what do I do there? It's like, that's when sort of some of the surrendering comes in and says, okay, obviously if I knew what I was doing to create the life that's going to make me happy, I would have done it already. Same thing happened before I got married to Hisami. It's like 10 years of being single. I was like, but always, wanting a long-term relationship. It's like, okay, if I knew how to create that and attract that and make the relationship of my dreams, I would have done it already. So clearly, to me, I had this clear realization, like, I don't know how to do that. So I just was, basically to the universe, to my guides, was like, help. I accept that I don't know how to make myself happy. Even though I'm really good at making things I dream of come true, somehow maybe I'm not quite in, like aligning that dream with what I actually need. Right. And I think that's where a lot of us, it's kind of a hard pill to swallow because it does take some responsibility to it. It took me saying, I'm in the situation I'm in because consciously or unconsciously, I lived my life to this point. And if I keep living the same way I'm living, I could just imagine in 10 years, I'm going to be kind of having the same feeling. And actually, the thing that triggered it for me was I hit my 10-year anniversary, and they gave me a pair of binoculars, like a little gift. And then I thought, I can buy a pair of binoculars if I need them. But I also thought it was kind of, like a nice metaphor. Like maybe they wanted me to look at, look
at your
ahead,
future.
Right? Right, exactly. And so I'm looking through the binoculars metaphorically, and it's like, what I see there is that 10 years from now, I'll be sitting in the same office, warming up the same chair, deleting the same emails, and I'll be getting like, I don't know, a telescope or something, right? And it's just, and that thought was terrifying. Like the scariest thing was that this successful life I was living would continue for 10 more years. That was terrifying. I was like, okay, clearly I need to go in a different direction. And I can't be the one deciding what it is because I decided this path. Okay, universe, help.
Well, it really was a great gift, though. It really was a great gift because it did give you the gift of vision.
Yeah, it was really, I thought it was pretty funny. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It's interesting because back to the point you were making in terms of like there's a level of like surrendering to the universal energy, but also like giving it up to your guides, which thank you so much for sharing that. I'm always in awe of how deep we end up in these conversations. There's a rub in there, which people I know consistently interface with, which is in that place of acceptance, some people are reluctant to go in there because they're like, that's disempowering to say that I'm not in control, but on the other hand, it's so empowering because if you don't acknowledge it fully, you can't really heal it. Do you want, like, I know you know the dance between those two things. I mean, you've got duality as a program. But do you know what I mean? Like there is such that empowerment, disempowerment, like, and it's literally just like oscillating rather than something being super. How do you navigate your way through that question?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, let's look at those words. So disempowering and empowering. There's sort of make a fundamental assumption that your power isn't something that's static, that it's like can be adjusted up and down by external situations or your own decisions. Like that whole framework of thinking is very disempowering, right? It's a recursive thought loop.
Hey there, Inspired Evolutionary. If you absolutely loved this, well then here's a full conversation with this guest on the Inspired Evolution podcast. Check it out now.